Right, so progressive overload and weight selection. This is really good training, if I don't mind saying so myself. I feel like this is going to give you a lot of clarity on the principles of training, what I expect you to do, the intensity that you should be lifting, the weight that you should be lifting, and when these sort of rules apply and when they don't apply. So let's get into it. Progressive overload first. When I'm talking about progressive overload here, I'm specifically talking about gym training, lifting weights and building muscle. You can talk about progressive overload in all different types of training. You could be talking about progressive overload in terms of aerobic training, but I'm talking about in the gym. So for those that don't know, progressive overload is where you progressively increase the weight or the number of repetitions on the same weight to continually keep placing more stress on the muscle. That's what it takes to build muscle. You have to be continually placing more stress on the muscle. If you're going into the gym every week and you're just doing the same thing, you're not placing more stress on the muscle. Therefore, you're not going to be getting the results that you want from the program. So progressive overload is really, really important. There's lots of different forms of it, but we're just going to focus on two main forms of progressive overload. The simplest one is you put more weight on the bar or on the machine. You increase the weight each week, or you do more reps on the same weight. So if you're doing 10 reps one week and you do 11 the week after, that is progressive overload. Now, there's loads of different training splits that you can have. Upper body, lower body, push, pull, legs, split routines, all this. There's loads of different sets and rep schemes as well. But ultimately, the one thing that underpins any good training program is progression. It's got to have progressive overload on it. And if you're following that during your program, it's going to be a good training program. So let's talk about 3 big mistakes that I see that are commonly made, and you might relate to this. You might have been guilty of this before. The first one is simply not following a training program. So people go into the gym, they want results, but they're just doing different things all the time. They're not following a program. They're not following a progressive pattern. They're just doing what they want. They're winging it. The second thing is not tracking their workouts or their lifts. If you're not tracking and recording what you lift, how are you supposed to know what you did the week before and how many reps you did? So much happens in a week. It doesn't matter what you say. I don't care if anyone says, oh, I remember exactly what I've done. You don't. You've got to be tracking your workouts, and that's why everyone's got the True Coach app, and that is the beauty of it. So you get in the habit of recording all your lifts in there. The other big mistake that everybody makes is they change their exercises too regularly. They go to the gym, they follow the training program for 1 week, and then next week they're like, oh, have I got a new program this week? Like, no, you need to repeat the same exercises, and you need to be striving for progressive overload on these exercises to see results. So the whole thing of shocking the muscle is a myth. That doesn't get results. What gets results is progressive overload, and that's what we're talking about. And building muscle is hard. It's bloody hard work for anyone. And anybody will tell you that. And sometimes, if someone is maybe 1 week into their diet and the weight is the same week 1, sometimes a client might say to me, I think my weight's the same this first week. I think it's because I built muscle. Unfortunately, I'd love it if that was the case, but that isn't the case. You don't just build muscle because you've gone to the gym once or twice, because you've done 3 workouts, you haven't built a pound of muscle. It's bloody hard work to build muscle. You've got to be tracking your workouts. You've got to be tracking your lifts. Everything's got to be excellent form, good tempo, good execution. You've got to be following the progressive overload principles. You've got to be sleeping well. You've got to be eating high protein diet. Your calories have got to be in the right spot. It's all these things put together and done for months and months and months. That's what builds muscle. You can drop body fat in weeks, but it takes months and months and months to build muscle. Right, I'm going to talk you through an example. I think this is really, really useful. A 6-week example, so like a training block, dumbbell chest press is the exercise, and 3 sets of 8 to 12 is the rep range that they're aiming for. So week 1, go into the gym, 25 kilograms. The first set, you do 10 reps. Second set, you do 10 reps. Third set, you do 10 reps. Now, obviously, the actual weight doesn't matter. It's just this progression that's going to be useful for you to see. So that's week 1. You've set your benchmark. Brilliant. Week 2, you go into the gym. What does progressive overload look like? Or week 2, you might go in, you use the same weight, but you're doing more reps. So you've got 12 out. So 12 reps, 12 reps, 12 reps. That's a great week. You've gone in there, you've lifted the same weight, but you've done more reps with that weight. Walk out the gym buzzing. Great week. You've made progressions. So how do we go? Because you've reached the top of the rep range now. So it's 8 to 12 and you've done 3 sets of 8 to 12. So we're going the gym week 3. What does that look like? Well, we're going up. So you're going up to 27.5 and you've got to the top of the rep range again. Brilliant. You've gone on to your second set. A little bit of fatigue has crept in, but it's okay. You've still done 10. You've landed in the rep range. Third set, you've done it again. You've still landed in the rep range. Brilliant. Again, progressions. You've gone heavier. Week 4, you've kept the weight the same. You've matched your reps from that set. Absolutely fine. The second set, you've done 1 more rep. Brilliant. And then you've kept the weight the same and you've done 1 more rep. Brilliant. See, most people don't get excited about this, but what I've just put there is you need to learn to celebrate the small wins. So if you're going in there and you're doing the same weight, but you're just getting out 1 extra rep, that is a win. You should be buzzing with that. That's really, really good. Because what you want to think about, if you follow this principle of progressive overload all year, think where you'll be in a year. And a year goes like that. Think where you'll be in 2 years, 3 years, but you just have to follow these principles. And what most people do is go into the gym and they haven't got the clarity on progressive overload. They don't know exactly how it works. So they fall for one of the 3 mistakes that I've mentioned. They don't track the workouts. And what happens is 3 months, 6 months, 2 years down the line, quads look the same. Biceps are the same size. Chest still looks the same. But the reason why is because you're still lifting the same weights. That's why this is so important. So week 5, gone into the gym. You felt strong, so you've got heavier again. Brilliant. You've done 30 kg, you've got out 10 reps. No problem. You've gone on to your second set and you've dropped to 7. It's got heavy. That's okay. The rep range is 8 to 12, so you've fallen just below the rep range. That's absolutely fine. Nothing to worry about at all, but you just make an adjustment. So you went a little bit too heavy there. You can change the weights in between sets, no problem. So you drop down to the lighter weight, and then you get out 11. I've just put there, it's okay to be flexible with the rep ranges. So if you fall 1 or 2 reps under because you've gone too heavy, don't worry about it. Just make a note, make adjustments. If you're feeling good, and it's on your last set and you're picking up the weight and you get into 12 and you think, oh, you know, I could have gone heavier here. I've got more in me. Do 13, do 14, do 15. It's fine. That's why I put it in bold. Be flexible with your rep ranges. Whenever I put a rep range for you to land in, that's like 80, 90% of the time. But there's nothing magic about that rep range. You know, if you hit 7 or 13, you're still going to get results. Okay, so there's no such thing as a magic rep range. As long as you're following the principles of progressive overload, you'll get results. Final week, going to the gym. Brilliant. Progression on the week before. Progression on the week before, you've got more reps and big progression there. So over that 6-week training block, you can see you went into the gym week 1, you did 25 kg for 3 sets of 10. By 6 weeks later, you've done 30 for 12, 10, 8. Perfect training. The next thing I want you to be aware of is true progression. So when I explain, like I just have on that previous slide, what it is, the biggest danger and the biggest mistake that I see in clients now is they get too obsessed with the progressive overload, and they end up, if we stick on the example of the chest press, what they'll do is they'll go heavier, they'll go up to 30s because like, right, I've got to beat what I did the week before. But what happens is they end up doing it quicker, or they just don't go down as far. So then their forms change, and that's not true progression. True progression is where you progressively overload, but there is 0 change in your tempo or your range of motion. Great example of this is think chin-ups. So someone's trying to improve their chin-ups. They do 3 reps week 1, they get on week 2 and they do 5 reps. But actually all that's happened is they've gone a lot quicker, and they're not going all the way down. They're not getting that full extension in between each rep. So that's not true progression. So yes, this is important, but don't lose sight on everything that I've said on the previous presentation. You still have to control your tempo, and you still have to control your range of motion. And it's difficult. Training is a skill. And it takes, a lot of time to nail this stuff. So don't worry if you haven't got it perfect, straight away, wherever you are in your lifting journey. It takes people years to absolutely nail this with good form, good intensity, good range of motion, good tempo, good mental resilience during the sets to push through when it hurts. It's hard work to do this. Next important thing to say is the difference between compounds and isolation. So just quickly, for those that don't know, compounds are the big stuff. Technically, it's like multi-joint exercises. So if you think about when you're doing a squat, your hips are moving and your knees are moving. 2 joints are moving at the same time. If you're doing a chest press, again, your shoulders are involved, but your elbow are involved as well. It's multi-joint exercises. If you're confused about what that is, just think about the stuff that you lift the most weight on. Deadlift, squats, leg press, chest press, shoulder press, lat pull down, seated row. You lift a lot more weight. When you're doing isolation exercises, that's when you're working a single muscle group at one time. When you do a bicep curl, if you're doing it properly, you are literally just moving one joint, your elbow joint, and you're using one muscle, your bicep. Nothing else is involved. When you're doing rear delts, it's such a small muscle on the back of your shoulder. Same with side delts when you're doing lateral raises. It's a small muscle. So there are different rules for different exercises. So basically, when you're doing your compound lifts, apply everything that I've said previously in the training. You follow your progressive overloads and you try and do it. When you're doing your smaller exercises in the gym, don't get frustrated if you are not getting stronger each week. You will, over time, months and years, get stronger, but you can never get frustrated in, say, a 3 or 6 week training block. Oh, look, my lateral raises haven't progressed, or this. Don't worry, be patient. And having this knowledge and me telling you this now, you can manage your expectations to understand isolations. You know, they will improve, you will get stronger, but it can take a long time. So don't get frustrated. Can't tell you how many messages I've got at check-ins saying, oh, my shoulders are just really weak, you know, because they're using the same weight on the lateral raises, or I just can't get I can't improve on my triceps. And then what happens is that the form starts to go. So on a lateral raise, that might look like bringing the posture forward and back and swinging, because they're trying to chase progressive overload on a muscle that it doesn't really apply to. So always on your isolations, the number one thing is your form. Make sure you take out all the muscles that shouldn't be working. You know, on your bicep curls, you're not bringing your shoulders into it. Pure isolation through that muscle. Over time, they'll progress, but be patient. Manage your expectations. The next thing to say on progressive overload as well, again, this pops up in check-ins a lot. You have to understand nothing is linear. That 6 week progression that I gave you is like the perfect scenario. Often, you know, that doesn't happen because we're humans, not robots. We've got emotions. There's lots of moving parts, different factors involved, and you don't feel the same day to day. You have changes in energy level, changes in mood, changes in physiology, especially for women. There's loads of different factors, so you need to consider that. So there we go. Like sleep is a big one. You know, if you're sleeping well and have done for weeks, your strength's probably going to be up. If your sleep's poor, your strength might go down. Stress is huge. You know, if you're going through a breakup, if you've got a job promotion at work and you've got double the workload, you can't, you know, it's unrealistic to think that you're going to go into the gym, get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and pull a PB on deadlift. Sometimes it just doesn't work like that. Niggles, injuries, different gyms, different weights, time of the month there for women, that's a big one. Nutrition, I didn't put there, that's a big one. You know, if you're in a deficit, and if you are in a deficit, how long have you been in a deficit for versus someone who's at maintenance or in a calorie surplus? All these things make differences to your strength. So apply all the things that I've said. Aim for progressive overload. But if you go into the gym sometimes and you just have a weak day, it's fine. You're human. Don't worry about it. If it happens once, don't worry about it. It's happened to me multiple times before. I've walked out of sessions before because I've just got pissed off and I'm just like, and I just walked away. And you know, through that you learn. And sometimes the best thing to do is to not go to the gym if you don't feel good. And many times over the years I've tried to force something that isn't there. The best thing to do is listen to your body. Now, if you have one bad workout, just, you know, get on with it. That's absolutely fine. Happens to everyone. If you're having 3 or 4 bad workouts on the trot, you need to pay attention to one of those factors. You either need to be looking at your food, looking at your sleep, managing your stress better. There's something going on. So if it happens once, don't worry. But if you're constantly having poor workouts, you need to address something. And I've just put train smart there, as in sometimes throughout your training program, the best thing for you to do is going to be either not training. just taking an extra day off and then going back to the gym the day after because you didn't feel like it, your head wasn't in it. Or potentially you go into the gym and you don't follow the progressive overload principles for that workout. You just, go on the leg press, you lighten the load a little bit, and you just get some movement in the joints, movement in your body, and you feel better mentally for moving your body and doing the session, because longevity is key. Sometimes if you go in there and you constantly try and do it every single workout, every single time, you can pick up niggles and injuries. So it's all about training smart and learning. Sometimes the right thing to do is back off. And if you ever do a check-in and you say to me, look, Adam, I wasn't feeling it because of X, Y, and Z, I'll just say, that's brilliant. Good, smart training. That's wise. You've got to be in it for the long run. And if there's 6 to 7 exercises on your program, don't go in there with the expectation that on every single exercise you're going to progressively overload with more weight or more reps and walk out to the gym with beating everything. Again, it doesn't happen like that. I think if at least 50% of your exercises you've made an improvement on, you should be very happy with that. You'll find some exercises you're strong at. Like I'm stronger at, say, legs and deadlifts. They're what I'm good at. Some exercises I'm terrible at. So you'll find that some exercises really fly and some are just a little bit slower, but that's absolutely fine. As long as about half of them are moving in the right direction, you're doing good. Next, weight selection. Like, how much weight should you lift, and do you need to lift to failure? So on the slide here, this is what we call the RPE scale, rate of perceived exertion. This is really useful to communicate with you the intensity of your lifts, because I can't tell you what weight to lift. If I haven't trained you in person, I don't know your strength level. It's really hard to say you should be lifting 20 kg. I don't know, but also I don't need to tell you that. You just need to understand the principles and what intensity you should be lifting at, and then you can apply them to go and lift the right weight. So on the RPE scale, if something's like 1 or 4 out of 10, it's ridiculously easy. It's super light. It's kind of irrelevant in a way. If something's like a 5 out of 10, it's what you're going to warm up with. It's like 5 out of 10 intensity, like 50%. Once you start getting to like 6 out of 10, that basically means you could do about 4 more reps. When you get to like a 7 out of 10, and you're on a leg press, for example, and you stop, that would be like you saying, if you stopped at 10, but if you really had to, you could have done 13. So you stopped with 3 reps in reserve, or RPE 7. If something's an RPE 8, you probably could have done 2 more. So you might do 11 reps on the leg press. You could have done 2 more. Working up to, if something's a 10 out of 10, you literally could not do another rep. It was like max effort. So it's really useful for you to have this scale. So you can, so I as a coach as well can articulate the intensity at which you should be lifted at. But the first thing to say is not all lifts need to be taken to failure. And I think sometimes just saying that helps, because I had a lot of people over the years thinking, oh right, I thought the only way to build muscle was to literally push to failure. No, not about that at all. Research has shown that if you are lifting at a 7 RPE, so you're leaving 3 reps in reserve, that is enough of a stimulus to build muscle. So hopefully after hearing that sort of reassures you that you haven't got to be killing yourself every workout. You can build muscle with 3 reps in reserve. The big thing is, as long as it's actually a true one, because RPE is a subjective scale. So if we go back to that leg press example, you might finish the set on 10 reps and you might say that's an RPE 7. If I had to, I could have done 3 more. But then I come and stand by the side of you, and someone else is by the other side of you as well, and we're cheering you on, screaming in your ear like your life depended on it, and actually you could have got 18 out. Do you see what I mean? So RPE, as long as it's a true RPE 7, you can still build muscle in that intensity zone, if that makes sense. One of my favourite sayings is, when somebody asks me, should I be lifting to failure? Is, if you can't remember the last time you took a lift to failure, complete failure, you probably aren't training hard enough. So if you're thinking back and you think, oh, actually, I literally can't remember the last time I struggled to get a rep out, you're not training hard enough. on the same time, if every time you're going into the gym, you're taking every single lift to failure, you're probably training too hard. Okay, so it's finding that sweet spot in the middle. So yeah, you should push hard, but certainly not on every exercise, certainly not on every set. As long as you're following progressive overload, as long as the intensity is 7 RPE or higher, you're going to be building muscle. The next thing I want you to think about is wave loading your intensity. What I mean by that is in relation to where you are in your training program. So most of the time I will send you a training program, and you'll know this if you've done a 12-week program with me. You'll get a training program for weeks 1 to 6, call that a training block, and then you'll get another training program for weeks 7 to 12. So you've got one block, another block. Depending on where you are in that block is going to depend on your intensity, because if you're going in week 1, the goal of week 1 is to go in there, follow the program, get used to the exercises, and set a number, set a benchmark in your logbook. And then from there, your intensity is going to increase each week. So if you're only on week 2 of the training program, you're going to be training hard, but not max effort. As you progress each week, and especially when you're at the end, say you're on week 5 or week 6 of the training program, you probably don't even need to look at True Coach. You still will, because you're going to be filling out your lifts, but you probably don't even need to look at it, because you know all the exercises, you know the routine, you know what's going on. If you're doing walking lunges, for example, you spent a couple of weeks wobbling, now you've got used to the exercise, you know exactly what you're doing, and you're really going to be pushing hard on, especially on weeks 5 or 6, because you're used to everything. You've done it for multiple weeks, you've got used to it, you've learnt the motor pattern of the exercise, and bang. So the intensity is going to go like that. Then you're going to get a new training program. The intensity is going to drop down for a week. You're going to get used to the exercise, and then you're going to wave it up. So throughout the year, it's going to be like wave loading intensity like that. And then sometimes you go on holiday, you'll take a deload week, which is good for you. You rest up, and then you get back into it again. You wave up. So it's always going to be dependent on where you are in the training block. So summary of, I've spoken quite a bit there. There's just a bullet points here of key takeaways. Or to take away. Number 1 is to always try and progressively overload your lifts. Hopefully I've explained, those big 3 mistakes that people make, and I've explained the different ways. The 2 main ways are either going heavier or lifting more, doing more reps with the same weight. That's what you should be aiming for. It must be true progression. Don't be the person who is doing half reps on the chin up or not going full range of motion. You've got to keep, you've got to find that sweet spot. You've got this side, you want to do perfect form, perfect execution. On this side is progressive overload. Somewhere in between is like that sweet spot when you get both. You don't want to be that guy or girl who is lifting with like really, really small dumbbells, but your form is absolutely perfect. Well, that's great, but there's no intensity there. You don't want to be the person at this end of the scale who full stacks everything with no consideration to form, tempo, or execution. Find that sweet spot in the middle. Remember the differences between compounds and isolations, and remember to manage your expectations on the small lifts. Don't get frustrated if they're not increasing. Nothing is linear. Remember, you're not a robot. You'll have good weeks, you'll have bad weeks. If 1 week you don't progressively overload, don't stress yourself out. Don't worry. As long as over the months and over the years you're following these principles, you'll make progress. Periodize intensity to where you are in the training block, what I just spoke about there, and RPE 7, so 3 reps in reserve or more can build muscle. So remember, not everything has to be to complete failure. Train smart, listen to your body. Sometimes the best thing to do is back off, but again, same time, when you feel good, go for it, push to failure. You should be pushing to failure sometimes to get the best possible results. That's all I've got for now. Let me know it's been useful. Let me know what your key takeaways are. And as always, any questions about anything that I've just said, let me know.